My name is Chelsea. Standing in the opulent Stonebridge ballroom, the air thick with the scent of lilies and the hum of hushed whispers, I feel a strange sense of calm wash over me. The glittering chandeliers cast a fractured light on the faces around me, faces that were once blurred by the haze of wealth and privilege. Now, they stare at me with a mix of shock and disbelief. Just moments ago, I was the prodigal daughter, the one who had been cast out into the cold. But as I stand here, holding the evidence of my mother's betrayal in my hands, I know that everything is about to change. Let me rewind. 3 weeks ago, I thought I had my life under control. I was a dedicated internal auditor at a well-known firm, and my daughter, Lily, was the light of my world. She was 5 years old, full of energy and curiosity, with a head of wild, curly hair that got tangled at the slightest breeze. One ordinary Tuesday morning, I dropped Lily off at preschool, kissed her forehead, and watched as she ran inside, eager to start her day. Little did I know that by the end of the day, my life would be turned upside down. When I got to work, I found an email marked with a high-priority red flag from Human Resources. It was an organizational restructuring notice, and my position was being eliminated effective immediately. I was in shock. I had dedicated 7 years of my life to that company, sacrificing evenings and weekends. But in 2 paragraphs of corporate jargon, my career was gone. I walked out of the building, the sun shining mockingly above me, and drove home to our small apartment. That was just the beginning. A notice to vacate slipped under my door that afternoon. The building had been sold, and all month-to-month leases were being terminated. I was faced with the harsh reality of losing my job and my home at the same time. Desperate, I reached out to my friends, but each one turned me down. They were all busy with their own lives, and my desperation made them uncomfortable. With no other options left, I turned to the one person I had promised myself I would never ask for help, my mother, Regina. My mother is a wealthy woman who lives in a sprawling mansion in the exclusive Millbrook Estates. She has always been cold and calculating, more concerned with her social status than with her family. I knew that asking for her help would come with a price, but I was willing to pay it for Lily's sake. I called her, and after a long silence, she told me to come to the house the next day. When I arrived, my sister, Ava, who is 3 years younger than me but looks much younger thanks to her privileged lifestyle, greeted us. The house was filled with the cold, antiseptic smell of lavender and lemon polish, a smell that always reminded me of judgment. In the drawing room, my mother and my brother-in-law, Ethan, were waiting for me. Ethan's logistics company had been struggling, and they had a proposition for me. They offered me a place to stay in the guest cottage, but only if I signed the transfer papers for the duplex that my grandfather had left me. I refused. That duplex was the only thing I had of my grandfather's, and it was Lily's future. My mother's reaction was cold and cruel. She told me that if I didn't sign, I was welcome to leave. Ava even threatened to call social services on me, implying that I couldn't take care of Lily. For the next week, I fought tooth and nail to find a job and a new place to live. But the corporate world was in a holiday lull, and landlords were hesitant to rent to me without a steady income. I was running out of time, and I knew it. In a moment of weakness, I called my mother again. She agreed to come and get us, but instead of taking me to her mansion, she drove me to the Harbor Haven shelter. She coldly told me that this was the reality I deserved and left me and Lily on the curb. As I stood there in the cold, Lily looked up at me with big, confused eyes and asked, "Mommy, why is Grandma mad at us?" I couldn't answer. I felt like my heart had been torn out. Just then, the door to the shelter opened, and a man stepped out. His name was Henry, the director of the shelter. He saw the luxury SUV that had dropped us off and recognized the license plate. There was something about the way he looked at it that made me realize there was more to this than met the eye. He took us inside and showed me my mother's donor profile on the shelter's database. To my horror, I discovered that she had been using the shelter's funds for her own personal gain. The luxury SUV she drove was bought with money meant for the homeless, and she had been funneling money to Ethan's failing company through a shell vendor. I was filled with a cold, hard anger. It was a turning point, I decided to fight back. With Henry's help, I started to gather evidence of my mother's embezzlement. We found a former secretary, Clara, who was able to provide us with crucial documents. Just as we were about to expose her, my mother sent me an invitation to the annual Stonebridge Winter Benefit. It was a PR trap, but I decided to accept. I was going to turn the tables on her. The night of the gala, Lily and I dressed up. I found an old but clean suit in my suitcase, and Lily wore a beautiful velvet dress from the shelter's donation bin. We arrived at the ballroom, and my mother tried to play the part of the benevolent matriarch. She offered me the deed transfer and a check, but I refused. That's when Henry stepped up to the microphone. He exposed my mother's misuse of the shelter's funds, and the truth started to unravel. Ethan's shell company was exposed, and the room erupted in chaos. My mother tried to spin the story, but it was too late. The evidence was overwhelming. As she stood there, isolated and defeated, Lily asked her the question that no amount of spin could fix. "Grandma, why did you leave us out in the cold?" The silence that followed was deafening. 2 days later, I was offered a job as the director of finance and compliance at the shelter. And thanks to the recovered assets, I was able to get a grant to fix up the duplex that my grandfather left me. Now, as I stand on the porch of the duplex, the smell of fresh paint in the air and Lily playing in the front yard, I know that I have finally found my home. I learned that family isn't about blood or how much you endure. It's about the people who stand by you and the boundaries you set to protect yourself and your loved ones.